Now we have an interview with Steve Killelea, who is the founder of Institute for Economics and Peace. Live from Sydney, welcome Steve Killelea.
Thank you. Very good to be here.
Hi Steve, welcome.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Very good to be here.
So can you tell us a bit about your journey and how you became the founder and executive chairman for the Institute for Economics and Peace?
Yeah, sure. So actually, my background's in business. You started off setting up two IT companies. One ended up publicly listed on NASDAQ, the other on the Australian Stock Exchange, and made quite a bit of money out of that. So I set up a family foundation which worked on developmental aid with the aim of working with the poorest of the poor. And so it's that charity's probably done, something like 240 projects now. I think direct beneficiaries are something like 3.6 million. But working with the poorest of the poor, I ended up in a whole lot of conflict zones and near post-conflict zones because a lot of the poorest people live in areas which are just racked with violence. And I was in northeast Kivu in the Congo, walking through there. I started to think, well, gee, what are the most peaceful nations in the world? Was there anything I could learn from that to bring into the projects I was doing? So I searched the internet, couldn't find any measure of the countries of the world by their peacefulness. So thought that was a good idea. And that's how the Global Peace Index was born, which is now the world's leading measure of peacefulness. But that posed a really fundamental and quite profound question, because if a simple businessman like myself can be walking through Africa and wonder what are the most peaceful nations, and we haven't measured it, then how much do we know about peace? If you can't measure it, can you truly understand it? If you don't measure it, how do you even know whether your actions are helping you or hindering in achieving your goals? You simply don't. And then what I found is it just moved further into it. I found what we did most of the time when we thought we were studying peace, we were actually studying conflict. And the studying of conflict is very different than the study of peace.
You're right, the study of conflict is very different to the study of peace. And therefore, the opportunity on this Peace Day, 21st September, is also a day of ceasefire and non-violence. What opportunity does that create? And what does it mean to you? And how do you use this day to advocate for this non-violence?
Well, I think there's many, many different things. I just think the idea of having a World Peace Day is just an excellent idea because it gets people focused on peace. But more specifically, when we look at Peace One Day, I think the call for action to just for one day stop violence is just like a circuit breaker. It gives a chance for people to stop, think and contemplate what they're doing. I think also it acts as a call to our leaders, for our leaders to think more about, well, how can they, in the actions they take, stop violence, even if it's just for one day? Because, like, one day does save people's lives. We're coming back around to the Institute for Economics and Peace and the work which we do there. There's a lot of actions which we'll have over today. So this will be about my fourth speaking event today. I've still got one more to go after this. We've got a massive social media campaign we put out on it, and we sort of forward that around to and that goes out to all sorts of parts of the world. We've got currently ambassadors which have been trained by IEP. They're in 106 different countries around the world. So we get that message out to them. They propagate that message further throughout their networks, and things build from there. So I think the idea of a Global Peace Day is great, and I think Jeremy's ideas of sort of having one day where people do stop violence on it, I think is an excellent idea.
Right, so you've already started talking a bit about the mission for the Institute for Economics and Peace, but what is your greater hope that you want to achieve in this world, specifically regarding peace?
Yeah, well, I think that's a very, very complex question. So the Institute for Economics and Peace, we're a global organisation. We're headquartered in Sydney, Australia, but we've got offices in New York, The Hague, Brussels, Mexico City, and Harare in Zimbabwe in Africa. And so one of the things which comes out of the work we've done is the study of what does create peaceful societies. And we call that positive peace. So in other words, the attitudes, institutions and structures which create and sustain peaceful societies. And so what's profound with that, with the work we've done, is we've just used the mathematical modelling, statistical analysis to ascertain it. So it's not what we think. And so it's very, very robust and very, very strong. But what's really stunning is that the same qualities which create peace create a whole lot of other things which we think are important in our lives, like higher per capita income, better performance and measures of well-being and happiness, better performance on the ecological measures and sustainability, better performance on measures of the development, for example. And so in many ways, what positive peace does is it describes an optimal environment in which human society can function. And so there's a transformational message in all that. So we build the structures which create peace, which is this positive peace, or particularly 8 pillars of positive peace. What that'll do is it'll create an environment which many other things which we want will manifest as well. Therefore, positive peace can describe an optimal environment for human potential to flourish. And that, I think, is a profound change. It's a new way of looking at invigorating our societies, and it's a new way of being going about developing peace.
Right. I'm really interested in the measure that you've talked a bit about, the 8 pillars. Would you be able to break them down a bit so we can really understand this, the model behind this like optimal society that we're trying to achieve?
Okay, so there are 8 pillars. Now, none of these are going to come as a surprise to anyone who's listening on the show, but they all function together. So that's really, really important. So things like well-functioning government, strong business environment, high levels of human capital, equitable distribution of resources, good relationships with neighbours, free flow of information, acceptance of the rights of others, low levels of corruption. And sort of they all come together to form a system. So I'll just give you an idea, because a lot of the time governments, they'll focus on one or two of these structures, but they won't focus on all of them. And so, for example, if you focus on business and high levels of education, actually there's a slight chance that violence is more likely to increase if you don't focus on the other pillars. So just give you an example. So I'll just think of 3 of these, and it comes back and it just underlies the importance of systems. So if we think of, let's say, well-functioning government, low levels of corruption, and let's say free flow of information. Now, the free flow of information can be epitomised by a free press. So does free press affect the way government operates, or does government affect the way free press operates? Does government affect corruption with its rules and regulations, or does corruption affect the way government operates? And similarly, does the information which flows through free flow of information through the press affect the way corruption is conducted, or does corruption affect the way information is distributed in a system? You can't pull any of them apart. And that just drives home the power of systems thinking and how systemically our societies are interconnected. So when working with those 8 pillars of positive peace, you need to work with all of them together.
Right, thank you for the breakdown. So what would you say the greatest challenge that humanity faces in terms of our journey towards the manifestation of a more peaceful and sustainable world is?
I think it's very, very hard, and you can tackle it from so many different angles. I think one of the biggest problems we've got is ignorance. So we look at, let's say, positive peace, and that's what creates peaceful societies. Most leaders don't understand it. Most leaders don't think about things from a systemic perspective. They think about it systemically. They're generally thinking about it in the short term. They're generally thinking about how that sort of affects their political capital as well. And all those things don't really work for long-lasting, sustainable peace. So one is that concept of ignorance. A lot of the time when we think we're trying to stop war, we're not doing it very, very well at all. I think from another angle, I think if we're looking at it, let's say, from the personal level, I think too many human beings just are ignorant in terms of what actually creates their own personal happiness. And sort of our own personal happiness is tied to our peaceful coexistence with other human beings. And so I think a lot of it, just at a societal level, a lot of people lose sight of that. The Buddhists have got a saying, in search of happiness, we destroy the very things and the structures which will make us happy. There's a lot of truth in that, So I think globally, everyone needs to look inside themselves to become better people and become better. I think the international institutions we've got at the moment aren't fit for purpose anymore. I think the UN and a lot of the multilateral systems just simply aren't working. And I think from a whole range of other angles, the technologies we've got these days, it's very, very difficult for human beings to be able to understand how to control them. If we look at President Putin and his invasion of the Ukraine, anyone sitting on the outside thought it was really a stupid thing to do. But in a totalitarian environment, he's got the information streaming up, which supports his views. And so from these kind of angles, like just the ignorance, it's back to ignorance in many ways. It's the structured way our systems are structured, and it's back to our own, quite often, selfishness and greed.
Thank you so much for that. I don't think we've heard a bit more about your own journey. So is there one person that has inspired you to come on this journey to make a difference? You mentioned that you started as a businessman, but who has really been quite pivotal in some of your formative ideas in joining economics and peace together?
Yeah, I don't think there's any one individual. Probably the individual which has had the most impact on my life is the Dalai Lama. So I've been fortunate enough to meet him a hell of a lot of times. And he's probably the person who's had the most formative impact on me. And he's basically a man of peace, a pacifist, and indeed, very, I like it, spiritually just an exemplary person. Being around him, it's like being around a lighthouse, just radiating out, really is quite something amazing.
Thank you for that. So how can people watching this right now support the work of the Institute for Economics and Peace, and where would they go to find more information?
Well, I think there's a number of ways you can do that. I've written a book called Peace in the Age of Chaos, apt for where we are at the moment. So that book covers the work of the Institute for Economics and Peace, slightly autobiography because it covers my journey to peace, and then it positions peace in the 21st century and why it's actually pivotal. Because without peace, we're never going to be able to achieve a lot of the other things we really need to do to save the planet in the 21st century. How can you tackle climate change when you're at war? You simply can't. How do you get prosperity, build prosperity? Without peace, you simply can't. How do you have human happiness without peace? You can't. So the Institute for Economics and Peace, if you go to the website Vision of Humanity, we've got a whole range of courses which you can do there. So we've got online courses which are on Positive Peace Academy. If you're interested in more further details, you can subscribe to our various newsletters and social media posts. Or if you're really, really keen, you can do one of our ambassador training courses, which is a longer course. In fact, we've got about 4,500 ambassadors globally now, and I think about 87 different countries, so very, very close to that.
Right. Thank you so much, Steve, for joining us today and for your inspiring words. We're so honoured.
Thank you. Really good being here.